Over the past 10 years, I've made hundreds of these Pysanky-style wooden eggs. This is a small selection of the many Pysanky-style wooden eggs that I've created over the years, using a variety of different techniques and styles. This first egg is a segmented egg, in which I have segmented pieces of wood, all glued together to create different unique patterns. Again, there's videos on our YouTube channel describing each of these styles of eggs. This is a similar thing, but instead of a segment, I made the dizzy pattern eggs. Again, I said there's videos in this on our website for a unique egg. I've also made some Celtic pattern style eggs. And then just some laminated different wood layers laminated together to create these patterns, both patterns in the center and also the top and bottom of the eggs. Just a variety of different patterns of eggs. And I even made some very unique patterns. This was actually done on my rose ornamental lathe, where these indentations were carved around this egg using the rose ornamental lathe. But I needed a way to engrave or carve patterns in the sides and top and bottom of these eggs. So as a result, I developed two new machines for my shop. I developed an automated rose ornamental lathe. I developed this new automated CNC router. And with these two machines, I can carve a variety of patterns and designs on both the sides and tops and bottoms of these eggs. So in this video, I'll be describing two jigs that I designed to put engravings on the tops and bottoms of the eggs. My first thing I wanted to engrave small signatures on the bottom of these eggs. And I wanted something to be very small, not too obtrusive, that stood out in the eggs, because I want to maintain the basic shape of the egg. So I developed these jigs to hold these eggs. Now you can't just take these eggs and put them in a clamp and hold them. They're going to slip and slide on you. So you need a way to firmly hold it in place. These were designed using 360 software and then 3D printed. And what these jigs consist of is two components. They have a base and then a sliding piece that slides on this base in two channels, and then clamps hold it in place. And each of these two sides to this jig has an indentation and the basic shape of an egg. And I can take an egg in this jig, I can place it in here between these two cavities, and then using clamps, I can clamp it in place and hold it firmly. So for example, I put it in this jig, hold it in place, I tighten up these clamps, and that egg doesn't move at all while it's being clamped. And then this jig gets clamped to the table, so it's held steadily in place. I did have to remake my automated CNC router twice. My first version only could do cuts maybe 4 inches tall. So I redesigned these side plates to the router so I could do up to 8 inches tall. So I could do much taller routings on my CNC automated router. So in this video I'll be describing the design of these jigs for holding the eggs. This is my first prototype I made, and I'll be showing this and showing examples of some of the stuff I did, mainly in carving my signatures in the bottom of the eggs. But after designing this jig, I came up with some improvements, and I'll be describing those improvements later in this video. And these are my two additional versions. This one here, which is already clamped to the table, holding an egg ready to be engraved. This version is for engraving the bottoms of the eggs. And this version is for engraving the tops of eggs. So that's a slightly different shape on the cavity in the jig. So in this video I'll be describing both of these jigs. I show my initial prototype, in which I did the initial designs, carving my initials in the bottoms of the eggs. Then I'll show these two new versions, in which I can do some more elaborate carvings in the bottoms and tops of these eggs.
The egg mounting jig for the automated CNC router was designed using the Fusion 360 software. The main base plate incorporates two sliding slots onto which the second top plate will slide and then clamp in place. The egg-shaped recess was carved into the side of the main upright for the subsequent positioning and clamping of the egg. The second plate with the same opposing egg recess was then added. It slides in the slots on the main plate. Two 1/4 inch diameter screws are then inserted into the two tabs on the sides of the main plate, which will be used to mount this main plate to the router table. Two 7-inch long carriage bolts and two thumb nuts are added to enable the clamping of the two parts of this jig together. Finally, two thumb screws are added, which are used to clamp the top plate to the bottom main plate to prevent its movement. One of my eggs can then be inserted in the jig, and the two parts of the jig are then slid together to clamp, then hold the egg perfectly in position to eliminate any movement during the carving or etching process on the automated CNC router. The two egg holder plates were then 3D printed using my bamboo 3D printer. STL files of these two components for this jig are available from me at no cost. Just send me an email with your request and I will forward these STL files to you.
What I want to do here is engrave my name and date on the bottom of these eggs. And I want something that's going to be very small, not too obtrusive. But the problem is how to hold the egg. I tried doing something where you just do this and something to hold it, and it still wobbles a lot. So you need something to really hold it. Just like hold it like this, you hold it very steady. So I made this jig. This was 3D printed, designed this in Fusion 360. A two-part component, has a fixed plate here with indentation. These are indented with the shape of the egg, basically. It fit different size eggs, but a close approximation of the shape of the egg, and then indented in. And then some bolts that clamp it together, and some clamps that clamp the two pieces together. Just slides back and forth on the base. So I put my egg in here like this. Put it in here. I got some thumb nuts here that I can tighten it up. And I actually made for 4 thumb nuts, but I think 2 hold it fine. Just hold it really steady. So that's nice and steady now. I'll just clamp this down to the table. And that was one of the reasons I made my CNC router very, very high now, so I can do up to like 6 inches tall, so this can fit underneath it quite nicely. And I'm using a 1/8 inch bit. This is a 30-degree point engraving needle on here, or engraving bit. So I created a logo very small. It's like a 1/2 inch in diameter. Has my name and the date 2025. That little scribe on the bottom of the egg here. So let me give this a try. The first thing you do is clamp it down to the table. You can use a variety of different clamps. I move my router bit so it centers on the bottom of the middle of the egg, and then adjust the height position. I use the paper technique. I move the pen down so it just catches the paper, then I set the 0 positions on my system. And then I'm ready to carve my pattern. That's my logo. It's about a 1/2 inch wide, about 3/8 of an inch tall. Very, very small text. Came out pretty good. Here's the second Pysanky egg, in which a separate cross pattern was recessed to the side of the egg. I used the same process to hold the egg in the jig and engrave my logo into the bottom of the egg. I repeated this process for an additional 10 wood Pysanky eggs. The jig worked perfectly. There was no movement of the eggs during the engraving process, and all the logos came out cleanly. And I would just polish on my buffing wheel with a very small amount of very fine abrasive. After using this jig to engrave the bottoms of about a dozen eggs, I decided to remake it to improve the design a little bit, just 2 minor changes. The main problem I was having when I was using this jig is my clamps that I was using to hold this thing down to the table kept getting in the way. Well, if I had bigger or smaller eggs, I had to keep moving the clamps. So I decided to add some tabs to the bases of these jigs, and then put holes in it that had slots in it that I could attach it to the table. So I don't need the clamps anymore. There's 2 of these screws, one on each side on these tabs, and they hold the system permanently to the table. So that eliminates the clamps completely. When I originally designed the system, I made these holes up top because I thought I needed 4 clamps to clamp this together. But I found out that these 2 clamps were more than sufficient, so I didn't need these additional holes. So I got rid of those and just rounded the top off to get rid of some mass. That makes it a little bit easier to view what I'm doing, so these edges won't be in the way. So just 2 minor improvements. But while I was doing that, I made another decision. I made this jig for engraving the bottoms of the eggs. So I made another jig with the index or the egg position reversed 180 degrees. And this jig is designed for engraving the tops of the eggs. So I have one jig for engraving the bottoms of the eggs, and another for engraving the tops of the eggs. And I do have another jig, which I'll probably show an additional video, for engraving on the sides of eggs. So I'm going to do this first egg. As we've done previously, the first step is to place the egg inside the two upright brackets, tighten up the two thumb nuts on the long screws holding it together, and also tighten the other two screws to hold the two components together. And that holds the egg very securely. Then the next step is to move the cutter so that it's centered in the center of the bottom of the egg. And as was done previously, I'm using the paper technique to move the cutter down till it just touches the egg, till the paper doesn't move, and then set the zeros on my computer, then start my engraving process. And again, I'm using the 30-degree engraving bit, and I'm actually rotating this at like 22,000 RPM. And there's my finished logo. And this middle strip here is a piece of oak, and that's the end grain, so I actually carved it to the end grain of a piece of oak. It's small, but it's readable. This egg is one of my special eggs I make, which is entitled The Russian Stranglehold in Ukraine, where the white represent Ukrainian people, the black represented the Russian people, and the reddish brown represents the blood spilled on both sides. And this band indicates the stranglehold that Russia has on Ukraine. It's just a political piece that I made about last year. And it's going to clamp on this center ring here, which should still be fine. A little bit of buffing compound in the text there. This is an egg I made with my automated rose ornamental lathe. It has a flat bottom on it, so I'll be putting this in that same jig. I can hold it and I can engrave a little bit larger logo in the base of this. This text is a lot larger and definitely more readable than the smaller logo. For doing some of these fancier patterns on the top and bottom of the eggs, I really prefer using my automated rose machine. It makes some nice intricate designs, as you can see in some of these. These are all done in the automated rose ornamental lathe. That's the top and the bottom. I also did these on the side. These are all done on the rose machine. That's the one egg. Here's a little different pattern on the top, near the bottom, and also the front and back. And here's some even more intricate designs that were done on the automated rose ornamental lathe. This central design here, and on these hearts. This is actually a gift from my wife for Valentine's Day. Another design, intricate pattern. And here's where I made an insert and made it real deep inside the egg. It's a very unique design. These are all done on the rose machine. They probably could be done on this machine, but it's much easier to generate these circular patterns on the rose ornamental lathe. This concludes this video on design and testing of these jigs I produced for cutting patterns of both the tops and bottom of wood Pysanky eggs. I originally designed these jigs for cutting my logos on the bottoms of the wood Pysanky eggs, but they can also be used to cut patterns on the tops of eggs. These jigs work quite nicely. They held the egg firmly in place, so there's no movement of the eggs as I was cutting and etching my patterns in the bottoms of these eggs. I am currently working on a new project. I just developed this new fourth axis for my automated router. This uses another stepper motor which holds an egg in a jig, and this egg turns and I can create intricate patterns on the sides of eggs. and I'll be showing this in a future video. Once again, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, as always, give us a call or drop us an email. We'll be happy to hear from you. If you're interested in getting STL files in either of these jigs, just drop me an email. I'll be happy to send them to you. And once again, thank you.